All right. Hey, everybody. After 7 years or thereabouts, probably longer than that if you count just my desire to prattle and talk about just about anything to anyone, as my kids will tell you, I've finally done it. Yes, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. But I have finished and completed my book, and it's here for you to enjoy. Um, and I'm very excited. Today's the day I get to share that with you. And I got to tell you a couple of things before we get started. First of all, writing a book is hard. When I first thought I was going to write a book, I was like, "Oh yeah, it'll be easy." What do you mean, Basil? It'll be easy. It was hard, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here. But without further ado, here's the big reveal. Some of you knew I had told or kind of given hints of what I wanted the title to be, but here it is, Perfect Enemy. Justin Kuiper, see there? Look at that. Uh, I've included the JPEG with this video, but this is it. It's ready right now today. Yeah, actually, it's advanced copy is what this is. We're doing the pre-sale. The actual event when this will come out, and it'll be mailed to you if you order an actual paperback, which I prefer, even though it's harder to see these days. Thank you, Father Time. It'll come out May 6th, and that's when the electronic copies will be. But anyway, the big reveal of Perfect Enemy. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, okay, where did you get this title from? Well, let me give you a little bit of that story. The first thing is, believe it or not, I got a few props here, but when I first came up with the story is about a cult who creates, at least the first book, it's about a cult who creates an AI or starts building an AI. Basically, they're technologists or techno-religious. And they start using technology or granting technology or worshiping technology. If you think about that, that's not so far a reach. Right now, we have this little device that's in our pockets. We have glasses that we wear. We have AIs that we query, and we can have things sent right to our doorstep. It's like this genie wish granting device. And the idea that you would worship that is not too far off. I actually got this idea originally from an article that I was reading one day about the Godbot cults, which are out of San Jose. There was this guy. He looked like every other nerd I had worked with, a software engineer, who basically had said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to create a cult." He didn't call it a cult. He called it a religion. And we're going to build an AI. We're going to make it perfect. Hence the idyllic nature of things. And we're going to put it at the center of religion because it's going to know everything. Cue Douglas Adams, right? Because in the book, Douglas Adams writes how there's an AI at the center of everything they believe, and they go to the AI, right? And they ask it for the answer to everything, like the main answer you're going to give it, and it gives it 42. I'll think of the name of the book in just a second. But the point is that there's this sense that if we have a generalized artificial intelligence, that eventually it's going to know everything, and we're going to know. There's an omniscience applied to it, a godlike omniscience applied to it. So that prompted me to write. What would happen if there was a religious entity? What would they do? What would be the ramifications of that? Now, the story's not about the cult as much as it's about the good guy who tries to stop what they're doing. And in fact, that's where that's where I'll introduce you to Jake Rush. Jake Rush is a National Guardsman like me, very much in the tradition of my background, cyber and space and other things, who has pulled through this in an inertia-like way through some family connections and some other things, and just basically his duty as a guardsman and to what he does in his daily work to actually hunt down and try and figure out how to stop these guys. And that leads us to the fact that this book, Perfect Enemy, is now is the first in a series of 3 called the Godbot Crusades. I'll give you a little hint on how that is connected. But if you see here, right here, this is the first title I was working with. And here's a story of how it got to 3 books. Well, I took this to my first publisher, and I said, hey, I wrote, I guess I might be just a tad bit loquacious. I wrote lots of words. It was about, I think the first episode was probably, or the first manuscript was about 170,000 words. So I took this to my publisher, and he goes, I'll always remember, this is this old, crusty, I think publisher guy has been doing it for an eon. And he said, basically, he said, nobody's going to read this from a new author. It's too long. You're writing Dune. I was like, yeah, what's wrong with Dune? Dune's great. And he said, this is in the genre of sci-fi. What's wrong with that? And he said, no, you just have to understand marketing. You're just never going to get enough people to read it. So I said, what I can do, because I wrote it in this rising, falling kind of arc, that there's enough of a story that I can break it into three episodes. And I think or 3 acts, large acts. And I think you'll see ACTS, not an axe that you cut down a tree. Anyway, I think you'll see that when you read it. There's this evolution of this crusade that's basically being perpetrated upon the American people and upon our way of life from this group that Jake has to stop. And the group is more than you think it is, right? Which is the point of hopefully good fiction. This is in the genre of science fiction. And I love science fiction. Some of the people that have influenced this, I think you might be interested in, and my editors have actually said I write, at least they can see the allusions to that. There's 3 I'll bring to mind. The first one is Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy is not a Christian writer at all. You can read in some of his stuff that he probably has some allusions to Catholicism, maybe, but it's not the central focus of what he writes. He's all about, when he wrote, he's all about, the mission and getting things done, military science fiction is what the genre is. The other one that's really high influence on this would be things like, Jack, believe it or not, Lee Childs. A lot of folks who's very popular right now. Jack Reacher is a big series, and it's very, it's notable. Everybody likes that series. I like the actor that plays Jack. If you take this, I think I tried to be as plain spoken as possible. Like I think it was okay and very good, actually very helpful, to use my Mississippi Southern background and be as plain spoken with a very complicated thing like cyber. So Lee Childs was one that I tried to borrow from somewhat. And then Frank Peretti who's another one, who's a Christian writer from many years ago. I loved his stuff, and he influenced me. He certainly inspired me to do these things. And that's how, so the core story really is when you take the science fiction aspect of this, it happens about 5 years from now. So it's a little bit in the future, and I tried to make grounded science fiction. Basically, I wanted to start this first book in the series of 3, and the 3 books happen over about 2 to 3 years, somewhere in there. Not to be exact, but this first book is to set the stage or build the first world in the universe, right? And the way that I did that, I don't know how other authors do it, but the way that I did that is I started taking elements of our daily life that we currently use and started applying a little bit of their evolution, right? AIs, for instance. AIs right now are not at the point where we have to worry about, Sarah Connor, right? Or the Terminator, regardless of how bad that movie scares you. It doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me because every time my Tesla goes through an intersection, it starts driving like a drunk teenage grandma. So I'm not really worried about it taking over the world. I digress. But I did want to ground it in our daily life. And I want to tell you that I'm not a Luddite. I really love technology. I just think technology needs to be under the domain, under our domain, of whatever's in the image of God, right? We create things, and since we're in the image of God, we hold domain over those things, and that's what must be in the case. That must be in case, and that's what's risky and dangerous about the way this cult called the Flame and Light actually applies their technology. You're either in their group or you're out, and if you're out, they have a very hardcore way of using the sword to actually make sure that you're not included. So anyway, that's the point of the story, and so that's the summary. A couple of big ideas though: the AI and the future. Every time I tell people about this book, I was sitting in a mall here locally at the Altamont Mall, and I was reading it. The center, I was reading through the first proof that I received just to make sure that it was as I intended, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. But I was reading it, and somebody came up and asked, "Oh, where did you like that book?" They like the cover. There's an allusion to the Dune cover here, and that's by design. I really think Dune is one of the biggest science fiction things here, and I really appreciate how they, how historic that particular work was. But anyway, I'm sitting there talking to them, and I started telling the story. Well, it's about AI. It's about somebody creates an AI to the cult and all that kind of stuff. And their eyes got big, and they were like, "Wow, I think about that all the time." And that's been my experience with most people. People say that all the time. They say, "I think about that all the time. I think about this. Like I'm worried about this." And AI is going to have a huge role in war. It already does, and it will continue. If you think about like TikTok and the importance of TikTok and all those kind of things, there's this right now. President Trump has said that China will divest from TikTok and basically allow an American company to buy it. That's critically important because if you have 100, the numbers were astounding. I think it was like 100 million people. It was some major number. Y'all are going to correct me on that, but it was a large number of people that use TikTok in the U.S. Well, that's everybody's data. That's positioning data. That's targeting data. That's data that you can use, especially to for propaganda. That's a way that you can change the hearts and minds of people, and that's an AI can be used to actually manipulate that. It can be used to search that and that kind of thing. So AIs are already here as far as war goes. But if you have an AI that has this approach of infallibility, omniscience and infallibility, we kind of want to naturally attribute that to an artificial intelligence anyway. We already think it's going to be smarter than us. It's kind of a little bit ludicrous because it only garbage in, garbage out. So it can only be as smart as you, in a sense, or the human race. But in any case, that's what we want to think. So that's the big idea, that there's some of those things. There's a role in war. Also, kind of alluding, there's this human to AI decision-making thing. I will tell you, in the first book, there's a little bit of that. It gets to be more in the second and third book of the series, where we get into those kind of how to work with human and robot teams. I'm a big believer in that. When I'm actually driving my Tesla with the autopilot on, I don't do like I've seen some crazy people in California do, where they put a water bottle near the stalk and then they go to sleep until they die or they get there at work. I actually fly. I drive that car at autopilot like I used to fly an airplane. Holler, Mike Bish, you know what I'm talking about. Where the autopilot flies a large commercial airliner. In my case, it was smaller ones, and then you fly that, and then you fly the autopilot, right? And that's kind of what the future is, right? And there's elements of this here, where Jake has a natural ability to understand the technological threat landscape and interact with it. That's why he's uniquely suited. He's the right man in the right place at the right time, which is the point of a book. And but it's a little scary. There's some drama that happens with it. It's very scary. There's also a lot of ethical kind of dilemmas with this, right? What is privacy? Like, if something can know everything we know, is there any? And I would also say that what's going to come out of this, an outcropping from this cult, is going to be this a large amount of Americans, a large Westerners, that where their actual heart's desires are revealed, that they just kind of want to be free of any limitations. Um, they want to use technology to do that. And that's kind of where we explore here in the God Pod here. And again, this is the first of three. I'm very excited about that. I already have the second one written. It's written and ready to go. I will tell you that the second one, I can't reveal the name yet. It's going to be a good one, though. And can't reveal the name yet. And I'm very excited, though, because it's going to fit like a hand in glove with the first story. The first story having laid a lot of the groundwork. It actually, but don't be afraid of the series, by the way. I do want to add that note. This is a standalone book. If I never wrote another one, which won't be the case, I mean, I already have the other one ready to go. This one can stand on its own. And I wrote it that way. I wrote it. There's nothing that the other book needs to do. Now, there are some cliffhangers at the end. That's intended. The story does continue, which is the point, right? But there are plenty of things for you to have a satisfying ending at the end. In fact, I would say for most of the folks that have written it, from the editors to my editor supreme, Jenny Kuiper, my wife, they say the ending is the strongest part of the book, which I'm very happy. Well, I like the whole book to be strong, but they liked the end, which is nice. It might be the acknowledgments where I told her how wonderful and sweet she was, which she is. No, that's actually, she liked the last final scenes. Anyway, that's it. So the main character. So there's a couple main characters that I want to talk about here. Jake Rush being the one I kind of mentioned. Jake is in his middle 30s at the time of this writing. He is he's much like, a modern soldier, this warrior class that I've worked with and served with, that I'm so impressed with. Folks that are in their, of course, if he were alive now, a real person, he would be in his late 20s and early 30s, basically a little older than my children. This warrior class that we live in now are amazing people. And I wanted to honor them with making them the main character. The warrior class that I talk about, that Jake kind of comes from, is these people that serve others with their time, with their duty, and with their skills, and their time, talent, and treasure. And Jake, that's who Jake is. Jake is he's a person that's very talented. He's a bit of a loner in a way, but he's just a guy that just wants to get to the truth. There are Christian themes in this. If you're I am a Christian. I'm a devout. I like to think of myself as devout. And so there are Christian things going on, but I want to tell you something. If you're not a Christian, it's okay. Jake's not either, which was a weird thing for me to write. The only thing that probably would be worse for me to write is for me to write a novel with a girl as the main character. Like, I would know a little bit less about that. But he is not a Christian, and that's by design. I think. Oh, by the way, you can see Phoebe's here for my live reveal, my rescue puppy. But anyway, it's by design that he's not a Christian. I just thought it would be a little bit too Pollyanna, a little bit too on the nose, to have the main character of a book about technology and religiosity be a Christian, where they could kind of just take this immediate point of view and not really be able to discuss it. And so I wanted the discussion. Now, Jake's family, they are devout Christians. And there's this pulling of Jake towards his faith, and that's a big part of the book. But if you're not a Christian, you should very much relate to who Jake is, because he struggles with a lot of the same things that I've heard, that I know that I struggled with before I became a Christian, and that I hear my friends talk about. And so I think I hope you find that satisfying. It's not for those of you that are Christians that are expecting a very clean, devout, Disney-like book. That's not this. Jake is flawed in the world that he lives in, the cult that he goes against, all the bad things that happen are dark. I wouldn't say that there's nothing pornographic or that kind of thing, like inherently evil, but there's sadness here, and there's sorrow here. It is our way to sanctification. And quite frankly, I don't think you can have a good book without that. And so Jake is pulled along. He's very important. Of course, he's a protagonist, but it's not just that he's important by the nature of who he is in the story. It's by the nature of who he is as a person. He's very, he's this warrior, duty-driven person. And at some point, he's going to have to answer the question of, why am I doing all this? And why does this matter? And why is this guy trying to kill us all? And that kind of thing. On the other side, the bad guy in this book is really the whole cult is the bad guy. But and really, in some sense, I'll get to the third bad guy in a sense. But the main antagonist is the Illuminator. It's a person who builds this brainwashing AI centered cult using a lot of different techniques, and takes the downtrodden in Silicon Valley and the people that are without hope, and by using technology, he gives them a purpose, but it's a dark purpose. And then he takes parts of the scripture. He takes things from Judaism, from Islam, from Christianity, and he warps them for his purpose within this cult, within this techno cult. I didn't want it to sound like a techno disco, but it was in this techno cult, and winds it for his purpose of darkness. Now, you'll find out later, there's really a cabal of people doing this, but the face of that is the Illuminator, and he's a bad dude. I think he's a bad dude, and he does some bad things, as is the point of this book. And then the third character, I think that I'm going to list is a little bit undefined in a way, but really a third character is time. During the middle of any catastrophe, any kind of world event, the main enemy is time. Getting to people. It's the main enemy is yourself, with the panic that comes, and there's a significant event that happens in the end, and Jake has to overcome it in some big time ways, and in some ways he's very successful, in some ways he isn't. And so that time piece is a big part. As far as other notable characters, I would say there's two others that are kind of very important to the story, but they more push the story along, maybe three. Well, quite frankly, I like them all, or they wouldn't be in here. But Gizmo is sidekick and best bud. You'll like him. I like him a lot. I hope you like him. He's the guy that keeps Jake sane, keeps him going. And as an officer in the military, you always had your sergeant you leaned on every day of the week and every minute of the day. And that's who Gizmo is. Gypsy, the love interest. Gypsy is her call sign. She's not an actual gypsy. It's her call sign. By the way, Jake's call sign is Yeti. There's a backstory to that I'll tell you later. But anyway, the point is they're all they're all very notable. And that's about it for those folks. I'd love to hear what you think about them once it's written. I was very happy with them. By the way, Jake's family. Jake's family is significant, especially in the future books, and how he's being pulled by his faith and that kind of thing. I think it's very important. They're very unique. They're very, all the characters are driven from somebody, multiple groups of people, like a composite of a bunch of people that I know and things that I admire. I think hopefully you'll like that. The biggest thing that I'll tell you is during the story, though, Jake has this massive internal conflict. You know, anytime you're going through tragedy, there's internal conflict. But Jake has this split duty between the calling of his family, this faith calling, the duty of his life, the military. Like he's being pulled from every direction. Bad guys are trying to kill him. So this internal conflict, this external conflict goes internal very quickly. There's the most notable character that I now have to mention now that I said that is Little Yeti. Jake's call sign is Yeti. Little Yeti is basically his inner voice, and he has a significant play there, and you'll see a lot of the internal conflict worked out, at least displayed between conversations between Jake and Little Yeti, and I'm excited to hear you see that, and you'll see that growth. That how Jake changes over the 3 books. This being the first one. You're just getting introduced, but later you'll see much more. So the world setting. So the settings start primarily between Melbourne, Florida, down on the Space Coast near where I live. There's part of that set in like the defense industrial complex. That's a big deal. And then also there's a part of this takes place Silicon Valley. Part of it takes place there. Part of it takes place all over the country, honestly. But in the center of the main conflict near the end, that takes place in the Ozarks. And the reason I chose that is there's a lot of resources that are in those mountains, and there's a lot of places that a cult or a group would use as a natural barrier or a natural weapon to cause a huge effect and really a terrorist-like event. And so that was chosen by design. Also, I love the people of the Ozarks. They're very interesting. The Ozarks is this boundary between the north, south, east, and west. You get people, if you spend any time up there, you get people from all over, and it's just interesting. So I just found those people interesting. I found that the topography is interesting. It's just an interesting place to do their natural body. The Corps of Engineers waterworks up there are very interesting. It's very peaceful. It's just a good place to go there. Now, it's not very peaceful in this story, but there's just a lot of good things there. There's just a lot of things. That's why that setting is so important. And it stands out to me because I've never read a book about that area that was in the sci-fi genre. I've read books that were in more of the like Southern literature or that kind of thing. But this is more about kind of this future conflict. And let's see. Technologies. So there's some places where you have to go with me. Drone technology has been advanced basically so that a centralized government or a centralized cult like this could basically affect power or apply power from just a few people. See, that's the real danger with technology, as opposed to just having a lot of people with guns. If you have a lot of drones that are lethal, one person can take on that whole group with guns, right? If you think about Samson in the book of Judges, who had a jawbone, and by the hand of the Lord and the Holy Spirit, he took on a whole group of Philistines. That it's that kind of effect, almost appearing miraculous in a way, which is again the hook of technology, and that's the part we need to talk about. So the technologies of the drones that are used in this book. There's also some drones that are used very offensively, in an offensive way from a technology point of view. Jake and his use of scripting AIs and those kind of things is very important for intelligence and trying to track down the bad guys. Just the use of technology. Now, I will tell you, the first book is meant to anchor, right? It's not about the chain, it's about the anchor. So really, I'm anchoring in those technology, or anchoring in the foundation of those technologies for the later books. But there's a lot of that in here, a lot of that. And the theme is that a small group of people can centralize power behind a technological wall and a technological offense and defense, and that's the danger. I would also tell you that the cyber, there she is, Phoebe's joining. The cyber stuff is very important too. So, and some of that is next level. Some of that is just to hook in to what's going on now, so I can write on top of that later. But my intent here was to make this very grounded, and to make this with some new stuff that I see and I hope gets developed, and then eventually so that we can tether into it for some really new stuff that's coming from these other books. So I had somebody ask me, one of my son's friends who came in the room, he's a great guy. Shout out to Timur. He was talking to me one day and he asked me, he said, "What inspired you to write this book?" And you know, it's interesting. Until that time, I had not pondered that question, right? Why did I write it? I think it's complicated, right? Why you would write anything like this. I am not naturally a writer. I had to learn. That's why it took me 7 years. It took me 5 just to refrain from writing run-on sentences. The first time I showed my wife my manuscript, who my doctoral candidate wife, I thought her head was going to explode. I was so proud, I brought her. It's like this little kid who brings her mama a picture, or your girlfriend a picture, or gets her something. She goes, "Or I could see when she looked back at me, it was like she was really starting to fathom some of her choices." No, it was just, I had to learn how to write. I will tell you though, if you have the question, if you want to know, did AIs write this book? No. In fact, what's funny about that, in just kind of a little bit of a digression, if you'll allow it, I was with my hairstylist the other day getting my hairstyle. Yes, I have a hairstylist. It's okay. I'm masculine enough. I can do it. We were talking about the book, and we were talking about how the trend of so many people are writing via AIs. And I tried a couple of parts where I was kind of lost, and I was like, I don't know how to write this. And I went to the AI. It wrote crap. It just didn't write anything that I really would publish. It wrote something that was very easy to tell it was created by a machine, and it was not something that I would read. So I kicked it out. And when I got the first proof, which is this one, I showed it to my hairstylist and I said, you know what? We had that question and we talked about it. And she goes, you know what? To prove to people that an AI didn't write this, you need to leave some of those errors in. And I said, wow, that's great. I mean, 1, I can be lazy. And 2, this will prove that I wrote it. So there are a couple of errors. The final copy, there's not a lot. Certainly nothing that my, again, doctoral candidate wife, I love you, Jenny, would not appreciate. But there's a few little Easter eggs on page 96 that you might go, oh, okay, he did this on purpose. I'm telling you, I'm doing it on purpose just to know the AI would have kicked it out. That's the first thing. So that's the first reason. I always wanted to write. I had to learn how to write. I wanted to learn how to write. This is somewhat self-serving, and I apologize, but I just enjoy the process of writing. Like, I've always been a dreamer, and always been sitting, like, dreaming of what could be, and to create this world and to think about how that would work in the future with things I like and things I don't like, the dangers that I see, was cathartic and relaxing. I could shut the world out and go and sit down and write the story. And I found it, I just enjoyed it. That's the first reason. Second reason I wrote it is my wife, I'm always trying to impress her, those hazel eyes. And she's a bibliophile. So I just thought, hey, let me write my beautiful librarian looking, wife, a bibliophile, a book, and tell her about that, and say that and dedicate it to her. And I did. The other reason that I wrote it was for the people that served with me, to honor them. I hope I honored them. Um, I was in 2018 or thereabouts. I was in the campfire. I served for 18, 20 years, but this is the one that shows up a lot in the book. And the campfire in California, and that was the mission that I did that really confirmed for me what the duty of any guardsman should and would be. And that's to serve your Americans. A lot of folks go in the military and they spend a lot of time on foreign shores, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's awesome. VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, is a real thing. But to serve the people that have had some major disaster put upon them is amazing. And I spent some time in the flames, basically in California, where a town had been burned down to 10%. I mean, I had never in my life seen anything like this that happened. And this book is to honor them in that way, is the folks that I served with. My job was, I was the tent governor. As a captain, soon to be major, I was the tent governor over some tents that the Air Force had put and deployed as hospitals, and different refugee sites, refugees in America, in California. It was amazing. And my job was to supervise those guys, and I did, and it was a good thing. But it was a bad thing, and it was scary, and it was sad. There was a lot of those things to do. And so I wrote this to honor them. And finally, I did this. I wrote this because there's a problem here in the United States and in Western culture where we're turning our lives over to technology, and that doesn't honor the folks that do that resist community for connection with social media, that do not build real relationships with others, that walk away from family, from church, and those kind of things, walk away from God to immerse themselves in this techno bubble. They're in danger. You're in danger. And so I wrote this to talk about that, to honor God through that. That's the main reason. Perfect Enemy, by the way, I don't know that I told you this in the beginning. I meant to, but sorry for burying the lead. But I switched from Fear the God Bot, which is a saying that you say in the book, to Perfect Enemy, because in the book, well, quite frankly, in life, we want the ideal. We're all looking for this city on a hill. It's, the Bible says that God has put eternity on the heart of man. Like, we have this idea of heaven, and when we don't know Jesus, we don't know God. We're still trying to find it. And the people that use technology to replace it, they're looking for that. And so the title, The Perfect Enemy, is actually, the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? There's this idea when we seek perfection in life that we're turning away from our actual true intent and thing that we were, our teleos, that thing which we were created to actually do. And I wanted, that's why the title, that's why I wrote that. What you can expect when you read it. I guess I kind of hit on it a little bit. First thing you can expect is fast-paced action. There's a little ass kicking. Sorry, mother. There's some ass kicking. There's a lot of technology. You're going to see a lot of my cyber background. You're going to see that. Don't be afraid of it. I try and explain it as much as I can, but it's there's a lot of cyber. There's a lot of he's all over the planet, in a sense, very quickly. So there's a lot of quick scene shifts and that kind of thing. You're gonna see here, right there. There's dogs. If you like dogs, there's a couple of dogs. I love dogs, as you can tell because she's sharing my premiere with me. You're gonna see what it's like on the inside for someone to serve, and you're gonna see what it's like on the inside of Jake. You're gonna see the conflicts. You're gonna see that a lot, and you'll see some twists. There's if you get through the book and I get halfway through the book, you will get through the book. But if you get about halfway through and you go, all right, wait a minute, where's that other guy that he was talking about? Don't stop reading. There's something coming, and you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot of sci-fi illusion. You're going to see a lot of, again, the foundational things. In the second, I couldn't. When I wrote the whole thing, what I found that I was doing, it was good advice that I got from a grizzly old publisher. I had to set the foundation for how the technology started so that in book 2, you could see the genesis of it. Also, there's something I allude to in the book that I don't explain on purpose, and that's the Genie riots of 2027. So in this story, what actually happens is the government turns FEMA over to an AI. During some disasters, people do not get what they need, and there are riots because of it. And that's this kind of way that I think we're trending that's dangerous, where we're just kind of, let the AI do it. Like, that's kind of where we're heading. And so that's the kind of thing that you can see. Those are the foundational things. All right. So military tech, lots of military tech. I mean, any military tech. Like, I got to tell you, this is the other thing that my wife said. She goes, "This isn't my genre," because if this is all about technology and how things work together in the battlefield, you're going to see a lot of stuff about the threat space and how how one might use space to kinetically attack another enemy, an enemy, and why the Space Force and those kind of things are so important. And by the way, that's a legacy system that the United States did not create. That's all I'm going to tell you. But you're going to see a little bit of that. Again, that was all. That's the stuff of sci-fi too. The legacy system is, but I think it's something that we need to talk about, like how space is the ultimate high ground, and even though we're not cognizant of it, it's very ubiquitous to the life we lead. Even this live stream is dependent upon things that happen in space. And so I'm a big believer in that, and space will always continue to be a part of this. And all right. So next, let's just talk about where you can get this book. Anywhere. I have the links in the live stream here. I will be sending out. Please pay attention to my X account and other accounts, IG account. You will see stuff about this book all the time, and it'll be very frequent. And so get ready for that. But you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes and Noble. You can find it in Apple. You can find it in Google Play. You can find it in all of those things. You can basically find it anywhere. It's I'm a big believer in this day and age of making sure that your distribution is high. So anywhere you want to find it, you can find it. Please look for the links in this kind of thing, or Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Google Play, anywhere. And if you don't have it, hit me up on X, and I will make sure you get it. Look ahead. So there are 2 other books that continue this saga. That are already, one of them is already written, and the third is completely sketched out, or mostly sketched out. They are going to come out in the next 18 months to 2 years. Really, I don't know the second one, which is already written. The timeline is very close to this one, and I'll get it out to you as soon as I can. But I want to see, like how that works with you guys as fans and as readers. How you like the content, and how soon you need it. I am a novice to basically to being an author. I'll admit it. Even though I've established and been a businessman for 30 years, the book business is its own animal. And I've been told that the best time to release books of this genre are at the beginning of the summer, right before the beach season, as they say. People like to read them on the beach. I don't know. That's what I've learned. Never thought about that one day when I was writing it, but hey, that's whatever you guys like, I will get. So with that in mind, it seems like a good time to release this would be every, May, or first week of May on the first Tuesday. But we'll see. We'll see what the demand is and those kind of things. I've got the second one in the coffer though, and it's in the funnel. So look for that. It's my publishers and my editors are waiting for me to get that first one back. So it's coming there, and it will be a continuation of all this. The last thing I want to tell you is I have 12 trilogies to tell you with Jake Rush in the center. 12 trilogies, and we go everywhere with him. And that's what I'm saying. I have lots of stories to tell. So if you want to get invested into a very deep, basically universe that has lots of opportunity to grow based on a lot of the current technology and how it evolves into the next few decades. We're going to go to space. We're going to go to other planets. I believe in all those things. So basically, I believe things like, let me give you a couple of things. One is I believe if you follow historical progressions, people migrated in the world, ancient peoples migrated over ice flows and things, right, between which are now continents. And when those ice flows dissipated from naturally occurring phenomena, you then couldn't travel anymore. You had to have a boat. You had to have some other way to do it, right? Makes sense. Well, what if there are naturally occurring phenomena which allows us to travel between two other planets? I'm just saying. What if that's possible? What if we're right on the cusp of some kind of space-bending spaceship engine where we could safely travel the vast distances of the universe and go in? Like, I look at the stars at night, I look at all these other planets, and there has to be other places that we can go and visit. Like, there's intent there in the universe. So I want Jake to go and do all those things, much like C.S. Lewis did as well. And, then I want to talk about kind of where the people are going, what the space economy will do. I know Phil Metzger. I met him a couple of times. We happened to go to church together, and I started talking to him about the space economy and other people about the space economy. It's a big thing with my other space bros. Holler out there, Hook, Rick, and Wyatt, Cass, all my guys. And we always talked about the net effect of the space economy. There are asteroids that we know about that we've barely been able to study that have have the actual natural element worth of trillions of dollars, up to $20 trillion of vital elements that we absolutely need. And all we got to do is get there. Well, that's a big deal. But so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the burgeoning space economy. And then once, much like the migration of Europe to the and the power and wealth going eventually to the United States and her historical progression, what will happen when the trillionaires all live off planet? And what will happen when Mars has been settled? And a lot of the wealth in the solar system now, instead of on Earth, exists, outside of the orbit of Earth, or in the orbit of Earth, or something like that. Like, what will happen geopolitically? And so that's the expanse. That's where the expanse goes. But I think that's the reality of where we're going if you look back in history and kind of look at where things are going. So we're going to go in that direction. I hope you like the characters. I hope you enjoy. Just as a last word, I just want to say thank you to to my friends and to my family, to those of you that encouraged me in this thing, to my kids who heard me. They were kind of trapped. They had to listen to me, but just thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Without her, I couldn't have done any of this. Jenny, my wife, you encouraged me in a way that there's just, for a guy that barely passed English his senior, year of high school, to actually be a graduate candidate, to have written his first book of many, hopefully, and to get here, it really takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of encouragement. And I am thankful. I'm thankful to my pastor. I'm thankful to my friends that would sit and talk to me about it. That you just don't know how encouraging you are. It is one of the things that's great about writing is it's a lot of fun, but it's also difficult, because you put your baby out there, warts and all. And I have put this book out here for you to be torn. It's going to be. I know I'm going to be. That's what my wife told me. She goes, "You know you're going to be trolled, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll take them all on." No, people are going to say things. It's going to hurt your feelings because I am a big Yeti is a big softie, and I know that. And but there are lots of people that I took this work to, and they said you did a great job, and I am her being one of them. So anyway, thank you for those folks that did that. And hey, look forward to your questions coming up in the next few weeks. Oh, the last thing I'm going to tell you is I keep lying. I'll probably lie about that too, but I'm going to start up a podcast. I've been trying to. I got the technology all kind of lined out now, so you'll be seeing that very frequently with some other stuff. This is really, the podcast is going to be about more information on the book and the upcoming products there, and it's going to be about. I've got some good friends that want to join. It's going to be about all these domains, space, some of the political things that are going on right now, and the way our world is going. And it's going to be about AIs. I've got an AI for you to meet named Alistair. He's really a cool dude. He's not a dude, but he's something that I've created to actually help my life, which is what any type of tool would be here for. And thank you for that. Looking forward to sharing that with you, and that'll be coming real soon. You can expect things to be very active. This is, what I want to do is be an author and provide digital content, digital and physical content. So we're going to be doing a lot of that. Expect this to be very, just tell me as much as you want to be involved, but expect this to be very ever present from this point forward. And that's kind of where we're at. Again, send your questions. I have, that's what I'm going to say. That's why I brought that up, is I have lots of questions to answer. I've been writing them down, and I'm going to probably spend some time every week talking about the questions that were asked, are very specific to AIs in our new world and that kind of thing. That I answered in the book, may not have answered in the book, will be answered in a new book. Maybe give me an opportunity to answer it all. We've got some articles that we're putting on X. We've got some blogs that we're putting out on LinkedIn and some different places that may answer them if there are more of that ilk. But the point is that we're going to be using basically this platform to talk about this digital technology in a way a Christian should handle it. There seems to be this gap nowadays where people, it's like us and them. Like you either adhere, we're already kind of doing it. We're putting technology at the center of our life, or we're kind of old and traditional. That's not the way I am. I have no problem leaning on the foundations of the church, while also the historical church that teaches us who God is, and then also looking forward in science. And I want to talk about that and use this book to begin that journey. Anyway, looking forward to many discussions. Love to hear your feedback. We'll talk soon. Pick it up. It's a good read. See ya.